and welcome to a Constitution Day conversation. My name is Elizabeth Maddow. I'm the director of the Center for Youth Political Participation at the Eagleton Institute of Politics. Now, our original plan for Constitution Day 2020 was to hold a public lecture on the Rutgers campus, feature a national speaker to explore issues surrounding American democracy and the United States Constitution. But in response to this moment in American history and the challenges our nation as a whole, but our students in particular, are facing, the Center for Youth Political Participation has come up with a new plan. And it's a plan that features Rutgers students as our proverbial Constitution Day speakers. To mark Constitution Day this year, we're going to be featuring a collection of videos in the coming days and the coming weeks in which Rutgers students share their story of democracy. So please stay tuned to our social media platforms for those. But we're going to kick off this effort now with a conversation with Rutgers students on a reflection on what it means to be part of American democracy today. To be sure, we'll be paying attention to the significant gaps, the significant challenges of American democracy, but we also hope that students will find the conversation constructive. In the end, we hope our students can identify a meaningful place for themselves in American democracy and come away motivated to make our aspirational version of democracy a reality. The conversation is going to be featured by Jonathan Cabrera, and Jonathan works in the field of criminal justice, government, and nonprofit management, and he's a professor of criminal justice at Rutgers-Newark, the City University of New York, and Hudson County Community College. Jonathan is the founder and CEO of his own platform, Abstract Lifestyle, which is a motivational platform that encourages students to pursue higher education and entrepreneurship through presentations, musical content, and blogs. Jonathan earned his degree in criminal justice from New Jersey City University in 2018 and earned his master's in public administration at NYU. Jonathan is also a hip hop artist and releases music that addresses social ills while also being fun and creative. So I want to thank Jonathan for leading this discussion and our student participants for sharing their stories of democracy. I also want to acknowledge the Darien Fund for the U.S. Constitution, Citizenship, and Civic Engagement for their tremendous support of our center and of Are You Voting? So I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan to introduce our students and to kick off the conversation. Thank you and happy Constitution Day.
Thanks so much for the introduction. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor for myself to be here. I'm very much, just, how do I say it? I'm very much just content and happy to see that our students, so early and so young in their lives, they want to already get involved and participate in a program like this. It shows, just like how we've seen with many, campaigns and revolutions in the past, that oftentimes this is something that is led and directed by the young people, right? So I don't want to focus too much on me because today this is about the students. My background and expertise has already been shared, but I want to get into the individual students themselves. So we're going to start off with Valentina Gill. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, what are your interests and what is it you seek to accomplish after you graduate from Rutgers?
Sure. So my name is Valentina Gill. I am a junior here at Rutgers-New Brunswick, and I'm majoring in social work and political science with a minor in philosophy. After college, I'm looking to attend law school, and primarily my focus is on immigration law. I'm a first-generation student, daughter of 2 Colombian immigrants, so I've seen the difficulties within that area. And I hope to really engage the youth. Last semester, I had an internship with the CYPP with both Jessica and Elizabeth. And I learned so much about how important it is to utilize our voices in politics and be active in that sense. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Beautiful, thanks for being here. Next up, we'll go to Nitan Shanas. If you can answer the same, give us a similar background of yourself.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Nikan Chanis. I'm a senior at Rutgers-Camden. I major in economics, urban studies, and psychology, and I minor in ethics. My personal passions is in homelessness. So before COVID-19 hit, I was working at a homeless shelter in Camden. And then I also did some events on campus around raising awareness on homelessness. Most recently, I've been involved with a statewide initiative starting out of Rutgers-Camden to address voter registration and education for high school students throughout the state. So after college, I hope to get a master's in public administration and then work in the government to address housing policy. And much like Valentina just mentioned, I really appreciate being here and I look forward to the conversation.
For sure. Thank you for being here. And of course, last but not least, we have Ms. Brittany Rogers here. So Brittany, feel free and give us a bit of your background. And of course, I see you putting on with the uniform right now. So talk to us.
So first, I'd like to say that the views expressed are those of my own and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Army, the Department of Defense, or the United States government as a whole. So I'm a third-year criminal justice student at Rutgers. I'm a soldier, a student, a civilian, and a full-time cadet. Excuse me. I'm with the 328th Military Police Company out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And we serve as basically being law enforcement to military, and then we help with regular missions for civilian side. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you all.
Beautiful. Definitely appreciate all of y'all being here. Let's clap it up real quick just for being here on Constitution Day and getting ready to share this goodness over here. So we lined up 3 questions that we want to get into in regards to just what Constitution Day means, what the Constitution means for yourselves personally. For me, before I pass it off to y'all, the Constitution is, of course, it's a very diverse kind of document in the sense of how it addresses different variations of our society, right? Some of it addresses our right for, freedom of speech, our right to gather and assembly. Other parts of it focus on, certain privileges and things of that nature that allow us to feel more comfortable being here in the United States now. Especially throughout the events of what we've seen in 2020, we can say that, of course, that looks different for different people. And one thing that we don't want to do is necessarily sugarcoat the idea that, that the Constitution and that the amendments in it have necessarily been the same for everybody, right? The reality is that, America it's a conglomerate of different people. Historically speaking, you would say America is like a mixed salad, but of course you will have more things in a salad than others. So what we're gonna do is pass it around. I'm gonna start off with Brittany, and Brittany, my first question to you is gonna be, as we celebrate Constitution Day, how are you feeling about the state of democracy and your role in it? Do you feel as if the quote unquote stereotypical definition of American democracy includes you?
So I feel like democracy for me is very different in a sense, because not only am I a person of color, but I am also a person in uniform. And on top of that, I'm also in law enforcement. So democracy definitely looks a little different for me compared to many of my colleagues who may be in a different boat. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
No, for sure. As we celebrate Constitution Day, how are you feeling about democracy and your role in it? So that's the question.
So yeah, my role in the democracy is definitely conflicting compared to other people, because not only is there the issue of a lot of racial injustice going on, but then there's also the issue of police brutality. And not only am I a person of color, but like I said, I am in law enforcement. So right now it's definitely conflicting, and democracy definitely is looking different for me, like I said before, compared to my colleagues.
And the second part of the question is, do you feel as if the quote unquote stereotypical definition of American democracy includes you?
So I can answer that in 2 parts. When I am in uniform, I am treated very differently. and that person in uniform fits into the stereotypical definition of democracy. But as soon as I take my uniform off, I am not only a person of color, but I am a woman, and I am also a part of the LGBTQ community. So society definitely looks at me differently versus when I'm in uniform and when I'm out of uniform.
Gotcha. And thank you for your being forthright, because at the end of the day, there's so many people that can, sit in the same seat that you sit, whether it's in one aspect or in all aspects together. We want people to feel like they're not alone in this conversation here. I'm going to ask Nitan the same question. So as we celebrate Constitution Day, how are you feeling about the state of democracy and your role in it? So we're going to start with that question first.
Absolutely. So, my feelings about it, first of all, is the Constitution document itself. It has a lot of really great things that we should celebrate, but also a lot of things that are not great, the way that it was initially created. And even, Jonathan, as you mentioned at the beginning, all those amendments don't necessarily fit in for everyone and don't necessarily represent everyone. And so the state of democracy, as I feel it right now, is flawed. It's something that we need to continue to work on and something that we need to continue to improve, but it's not something that is perfect in any means. I look at other countries as it relates to voting where, they have laws that you have to go and vote or else you'll be penalized. And so they have enormously high voting turnout. And that's just not the same case for us here in the US. And that has deliberately been done to suppress people and disenfranchise people. I'm not speaking from experience. As you can tell, I'm a white dude. I do have privileges. And I'll get onto that in my answer to the next question in just a little bit. But I am speaking from someone that has heard this from other friends and that has seen it firsthand in some of the work that I do.
Excellent. And part of that response, of course, includes your acknowledgement of the situation. The fact that you yourself can experience, one side of, what the Constitution is entailing or what it's putting out there. And then on the other side, you're still able to observe and analyze, is this true for every single person? So props to you on that. The second part of the question is, do you feel as if the stereotypical definition of American democracy includes you?
Yeah, so it does, right? The very first definition of white land-holding male, I mean, I'm not land-holding, but at that age and that time, perhaps I would have been at this point. Yes, I do feel like it does fit me, but as I mentioned, it doesn't fit everyone, and that's something that we need as a country to address, to talk about, like we're doing now, but then to address it as well.
Got you. Excellent work, ma'am. So now we're going to go to Valentina Gill, and now I'm going to ask you the same question. So we'll start off with the first half, which is, as we celebrate Constitution Day, how are you feeling about the state of democracy and your role in it?
I think for starters, as Nitan said, the Constitution has a lot of very great things, but in our current state, how that's translated is to a lot of divisiveness and a lot of polarization. And I think that's one thing that off the bat we must address. Recently, in these past weeks, I've been taking an American constitutional law class, and I've learned that, or it's something that I think we all already knew, but we tend to forget that the people who wrote the Constitution, some of them were slave owners themselves. So I think from the beginning, we knew, or the founding fathers knew, that there were going to be a lot of problems, and the problems are here, and we haven't fully addressed them. So I think that there's been a lot of progress made. There's been protests. There's been, I know Breonna Taylor, she just settled like a lawsuit or something like that. So there's been progress, and obviously protesting and petitions, they work to a certain extent, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
All right. And the point that you brought up in regards to, the founding fathers having owned slaves, of course, that, that already creates a certain worldview, for those individuals as to how the country should eventually evolve and turn out. So anybody that, wasn't part of that population, of course, or those groups of participants, were not going to be privy to those benefits. The second part of the question is, do you feel as if the stereotypical definition of American democracy includes you?
I think to a certain extent, it definitely does. I know I brought up Breonna Taylor, but someone else, what's his name, Elijah McClain. I signed like the petition, for example, for the ban on ketamine, because I think that had to do with the whole situation, his situation. And I think that's just like a perfect example of how, you know, I'm able to participate and be active in democracy and also see the results of that and how effective it can be. But at the same time, I'm a daughter of 2 immigrants, and both of them have, you know, struggled with their status, which is something that I know a lot of people experience as well. So I think it's troubling to think of America as the land of the free, you know, the land of diversity, when a lot of the times that's not accepted the way it should be, because the land was built on the hard work of immigrants, and it continues to be the case. So it's a little conflicting, but.
Excellent. And, you know, there's definitely, you know, room for agreement when it comes to a lot of the points that you made. And of course, you know, as you mentioned, Breonna Taylor, their family just came to a settlement, which is actually pretty speedy for a lot of, you know, these types of cases. Of course, we still would like justice, but that's definitely a start in the midst of everything. So Valentina, we're gonna stick with you for question number 2. How does your story enrich our American democracy story?
I don't really know where to start. I think I've talked a lot about like how I come from immigrants, and I think I do that a lot because that's really what my story is all about. You know, my parents didn't go to college. I'm the first one to even learn about like if I went to ask my mom right now what is democracy, she wouldn't be able to tell me. So I think my story has been one of learning, one of gaining new experiences, and finding my voice. I think has been a really important way to share my story of democracy. And I think with the career path that I want to go into, which is the law, you need to be able to know how politics works and how that all ties together to be able to be a real active citizen.
Right. And piggybacking off what you said, I myself am first generation. I come from, you know, a Dominican father who he's one of 13 in DR. You know, they didn't have technology or much to do. So, you know, they just had big families. And basically he comes from a small farmland in DR, a small little campo over there. My mother, you know, single parent household from Ecuador. They came over here. I became the first male in my whole family to go to college and the first in my entire family to get a master's degree. So, you know, just know that you're not alone and this applies to each and every one of you, you know, and all the students watching. You're not going to be the first and the only person to go through this. So be sure to extend yourselves and to network and, you know, build community amongst each other. Brittany, we're going to go to you for question number 2. How does your story enrich our American democracy story?
Well, as most of us know, the ideals of American democracy are liberty, equality, and self-government. But that really only pertains to a small group of people. So I specifically see myself in like the eye of democracy as that person who kind of had to, you know, like sit down and say, okay, where do I want to be in life and how am I going to get there? As a lot of young people my age do. And I think my story of honestly enlisting into the Army and kind of figuring out my life from there really shows like that American democracy. But I also think that's similar to, you know, being an illegal immigrant and, you know, trying to come to the United States and you know, find a better path for yourself and your family. So I definitely think like the American democracy itself, those 3 fundamental ideals are only applied to a small group of people. But I personally feel it's how you take those ideals and kind of form them and make them work for you.
Great work. And I think just seeing everything that you've kind of made up in regards to like where you're at in life right now, you having been a student of mine and conversations we've had, like you definitely, at least in my perspective, are enriching and contributing to this American democracy of ours. And of course, Valentina and Nitan as well. So, you know, just keep up the good work and stay steadfast with it. Nitan, I'm gonna ask you the same question. How does your story enrich our American democracy story as a whole?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Israel. I got citizenship because my mom was born in the States. I was able to get it through her, and that's how I can vote, of course. But I am originally from Israel, and that's part of how my story enriches and adds to our democracy in the US. It's just being able to get international voices, again, if they have citizenship to democracy. But then the other step, and as I keep on mentioning here, that I'm a white dude and that I have privileges, it's them being able to use that and help others that don't have that, provide additional support, provide education, register people to vote, and kind of show them the steps that I've been given, right? The steps that have been so readily available to me, and making it more readily available to others. And again, I mentioned at the very beginning that I'm working on that other initiative. That's a part of what we're doing, is focusing on youth that have been disenfranchised, because there are certain groups that have been disenfranchised in terms of voting: youth, women, and people of color. And so we're focusing on youth, and then a little bit on the people of color piece as well, in the Camden area.
Sure. And I like the idea that earlier you said you're going for your MPA. I got an MPA myself, and I know just how broad that degree can be. It's a degree where you're able to get in many different sectors and aspects of society. You could get into private corporations, you could get into nonprofit, government, you know, and of course you learn the managerial skills you need to adapt in any of those situations. So of course, with anybody, you know, with all of y'all, I'm down to chop it up and talk all this good stuff after the, you know, after what we're doing here, but definitely good work there. And for this last question, I'm going to start off with Nitan. What steps might you take this semester and in future years to make democracy inclusive of everyone?
I was gonna say that you had me sold on MPA, even though I'm already sold, so maybe double sold. But in terms of this semester, again, that comes down to the initiative, and I won't talk about it for the third time, but it is being able to provide additional support to people, and we are looking to grow that initiative in the future. So the idea was to reach out to 555 schools. That number will stay the same, but hopefully we'll have some more yeses, and that means getting our information and our materials in front of more people. But then beyond that, I also want to work on our campus in terms of voter registration. I'm running for SGA regardless of whether or not I get into SGA. I want to be able to increase our vote on our campus in Rutgers-Camden. And so that's part of what I want to do. But again, it's not just about voter registration, it's voter education, because I can quickly and easily go to someone, take them through the online Department of State website and go, here, this is how you register. But it's getting people to understand the importance of it, and not only to understand the importance of it, but to understand all of the information so that they can make their best decision. And without that, a lot of people don't necessarily go out to vote, or perhaps they face additional challenges as they're trying to go out and vote. And so educating, giving them the correct information so that their names aren't purged from the list, so that their votes do count, is how I am looking to do that.
Great. And SGA is definitely a great form to do that. I think it's important for students to get involved on campus and, you know, to build their leadership and managerial skills like that. I was involved in student government at least 3 of the 4 years I was in undergrad and even in grad school. So it's very important to get involved in school and in the community as well. Valentina, I'm going to ask you the same question. What steps might you take this semester and in future years to make democracy inclusive of everyone?
I think this semester, actually this Monday, I took the initiative as co-president of Undocu Rutgers to speak to the administration about the lack of a fund for undocumented students at the New Brunswick campus. Both Rutgers-Camden and Rutgers-Newark have started that already, and I think they've been pretty successful in their fundraising efforts. So considering that undocumented students were left out of the CARES Act, but also considering that they contribute to such a huge group of the student population, they're being a little bit excluded. So I think doing things like that, direct activism, I think I would call it, is a way to kind of be participatory in our democracy. So that's what I'm doing this semester. But I think looking forward, especially right now, given that, you know, with COVID and all the things that are happening, I think something as small as reading the news and staying on top of current events, even though it can be so overwhelming because of things like COVID, just staying in the loop of what's going on in politics right now, I think that's a big way of being present and active. Yeah.
Sure, excellent answer. And in the event that you can use any more support or, you know, I guess assistance with maybe promotion or things of that nature, of course, you have me, you have, you know, Elizabeth, Jessica, and other faculty members ready to assist with all that. So don't feel like you're alone in any of this. And of course, last but not least, for this final question, Brittany, what steps might you take this semester and in future years to make democracy inclusive of everyone?
So this semester is important because, you know, election year and everything. So definitely vote, definitely register to vote. I go to Rutgers-Newark, and Are You Voting is everywhere online. They reach out to you through text messages. They reach out to you through email. So register to vote and actually vote, and make your vote count. Actually, you know, educate yourself on who you're voting for and what you're voting for, and, you know, what you specifically believe in and what you believe should happen within the country. Moving forward, how to make democracy inclusive for everyone. I think that honestly starts with the individual themselves. You know, be a good human. Try to make life in general more inclusive, as opposed to being, you know, bipartisan or not wanting to be an open person and learning about others' views. So definitely voting, and honestly just being a good human and giving everyone a chance.
Sure, and I appreciate the answer, because before we ever took a political stance or, you know, decide I want to be red or blue, you know, we were humans first, right? Like we were all people, you know, with the same biological compounds. We all have organs, we have a beating heart, we bleed the same color, you know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, a lot of these arguments and back and forths we get into, you can argue are kind of irrelevant if when it gets down to the, you know, core of it. But of course, we still have to have these conversations, because these are conversations that exist in the public square or wherever you go, on the train, the bus, military base, wherever. So definitely, I applaud all of y'all. Let's clap it up for y'all real quick, right? Because the fact of the matter is, all of y'all are some young, bright minds, obviously leaders of the future, leaders in the present, you know, and obviously the future is just bright, and it's going to hold a lot of promise for yourselves and many of your peers and colleagues as well. So I'm very thankful to have had this conversation with y'all. I'm very excited to stay in touch and to stay in communication with each and every single one of y'all as well. What I'm going to do, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, you know, I teach, you know, I have my experience in criminal justice, but I got bars too. All right. I'm not talking about bars of soap. I'm not talking about chocolate bars. I'm talking about I spit bars. Okay. I do this. So this is a spoken word. This is really a rap, but I'm calling it spoken word because it's not on the beat. But basically it's kind of just me trying to embody the spirit of, you know, what democracy has led for a person, you know, of color such as myself to, you know, navigate to this point where, you know, I had to survive first. You know, I had to survive gang violence, you know, all types of stuff, you know, street stuff, people that I know who, you know, are either dead or they're never coming home because now they're locked up, you know what I'm saying? So I had to navigate through all that first. That was my first introduction to this world, you know, just survival. And basically through, you know, through some very solid people who made their way into my life, whether it's through college or whatever else, they became pillars for me to eventually focus on education and use education as a way out. So now by that, you know, by that same privilege and grace, I'm able to teach college and pass this on down to students as well. So here it goes. How my ancestors' wildest dreams come into fruition. My people come from places where we have rotten conditions. According to the bureaus, I'm supposed to be a statistic. Analytics call me criminal for my birth or existence. I'm out here with a blaze, some got a Glock for resistance. I'm just trying to stay safe from shock of going ballistic. The media try to ruin us with shots at our image. They don't show us going to Harvard, only shots of ballistics. We on the front page in like a gun range. Call a brother thug strange, one white snort the cocaine. College data plug main, then the model ball main. We known to play sports all state, me no cage. Quit to hook a brother up a Paris State grains. People who are higher up just want to stay green. Opioid and epidemic like the crack scene. They want us to stay folk or want us to stay fiends. All these politicians just be talking, don't be woken. All this political jargon cover up many your caucus. Never side with issues less in need of our support. Otherwise, we up in court. If you're running for a caucus genocidal, then it turns suicidal. Living life on survival, put their hand on the Bible. Office remains idle, money remains idle. Asking for an inch, nah, we never get a mile. How will people be sobbing? All of this got me throbbing. Youngest began robbing, we had no Batman and Robin. They done killed all our heroes. Memory of them zero. Homie, this here a jungle and lion tigers is feral. School to prison pipeline, the pipe dreams, the bridge that got no bike lines cause you were pipe fiends. Homie, on this island, those be wildin', you might see a lot of stuff in daytime reserved for the night scene. You see some brothers getting murdered up, homie stabbed up. You see some youngers getting jumped out, getting grabbed up, get sexually assaulted and get told to man up. And if you don't man up, then you might just hang up on everything. Everything is everything. Food calls your wedding ring. Promise your life's up for grabs, reinvented slavery. Get them while they're young, hyper suspension expulsions. Way to keep them ignorant, education give convulsions. Anytime they think about school, they think of trauma. Tears were shed from the disappointment of their mama. Teacher once told them they'll never amount to nothing. That teacher up in the future faced a student, now a gunman. And that's it. So thanks so much for being a part of this this meeting, this gathering of the minds. Definitely, like I said, let's keep in touch. Let's keep the momentum going forward, and looking forward to continue to build and continue to improve what we call our American democracy. Thanks so much.